So today we're gonna do something neat for Christmas. We got a dishwasher sink combo. And basically what's gonna happen is this sink goes bye-bye. Our usable sink portion will still be on this side, but over here it's going to be a dishwasher that flips open. Today's goal, it's a pretty simple install. I think we can do the whole thing if I have everything. But the main goal right now is going to be, I got to get the faucet disconnected. The counter has to come off because this is a bottom mount sink and I need to remove it from the counter. I need to pull one of these sink drains off to put the, I don't know, it's not called a drain, but the bottom part of the sink, there's a part that you plumbers putty in. So I need to add that to the new thing. And then we'll have to cut this hole bigger so we can put our dishwasher in and then power it. And then we're gonna have a dishwasher. So no more hand washing of dishes like every single day. I just went and turned the water off to the RV. So this is the second lowest point. I think the pickups for this, I would say, are a little lower because they come up from the ground here. But then the washing machine, again, second lowest point. Next highest point is like shower and bathroom. But if there's any pressure, there's water built up in the shower bathroom lines. When you open the stuff downhill, that pressure will backflow through. So I turned the washing machine on and tried to get it to pull any water out of the system. So there may still be a little water come out when I unhook it underneath the sink, but probably not a lot. Now I'm gonna climb underneath the sink, which is gonna be tricky to film. We might try, not 100% sure if we're gonna have any good shots because it's like not a big space here. But I'm gonna climb up under this sink and we'll talk, I'll do some things and then talk through it at least bare minimum. I'm gonna take these doors off. I don't want to break them off working back here. Basically, what I'm getting ready to do, first I'm going to take all this stuff out of here, but I need to disconnect these water lines. And this is the line that allows it to have its retractable head. So this just is a loop. So I'm going to disconnect all three of these, and this will allow me to unscrew. There's a large nut. There's a large nut right there. That large nut allows you to take the faucet out the top. It's probably going to be a little bit of water, so get towels or a small bucket when you do this kind of work. But again, I went through and tried really hard to drain as much of the water out of the system as I could before I got into it. There's these little Phillips head screws all the way around the top. And so even though these RVs do have like actual hard surface countertops, the bottoms of them are hollowed out so that they're not as heavy. And this one appears to be backfilled with a piece of plywood, which gives them a mounting surface. So I'm fairly certain that there's, so you can see if you look around on the inside in here, there's a handful of those screws. So I'm fairly certain those are holding the counter down. And then we'll disconnect. Actually what I'll do is I'll just slide it out at the trap here because this is gonna have water in it, and that's, gross water, but not bad water, just gross sink water. So we'll slide the whole thing up and you're just going to loosen it right here. So the way this should work, all the water above this point will drain, right? So the bottom here, but this little U at the bottom will be full of water. And once I free up the whole counter, I can the whole thing, this is just a slip joint, so this will slide right out of that hole. And then, once it's out, we'll disconnect this from the bottom, and then we'll start looking at what it's gonna take to install the new one. Like I said, these two are pretty easy to get out. There's a little water left in everything, so, have a bucket, have a roll of paper towels around. Or just some towels is even better. It's clean water, So next thing I want to do is try and take this big nut off. There's usually the big nut and then a little screw in the side that is like a set screw to lock it in place. So I have this extension to try and make more room. I probably don't actually need it, and this takes the pressure off this locking nut. So this will come out easy.
are unthread easy because you don't actually tighten the locking nut down to the surface that you're screwing against. You tighten it down and then you torque these screws up in there. So with those loosened, this big nut just unscrews really easy. So this is that big nut that we were talking about. I know it was hard to see under there, but this threads on the bottom of the faucet, and then this piece goes above it, so you're not burying these screws into this, because you know small points of pressure will tear things up, but this metal helps distribute it. So you get it snug with your fingers, and then you use a screwdriver to screw these two in, and that pushes and locks it all in place. So first thing you have to do when you remove it is loosen these till there's like a gap, and then this nut is completely free. Out comes the faucet. Now I'm going to try and figure out how to get this counter off. I think it's just these screws, so I'm going to start by taking a bunch of these screws out. So my hope is that now, you see? Our counter is, it's just held on by a handful of screws. People might not know how to get these drawers out. I'm gonna take all the drawers out to give myself more room with these little latches. You see, it locks into place. Unhook this side and unhook that side. This is the mechanism, right? So this is the tooth that holds it in. But now we are disconnected. There's like this space between this radiused face and the flat face on the inside, and I'm fairly certain the connections to the countertop are inside that, which is fantastically, just fantastic.
It's good?
No, I'm being very sarcastic.
I have no idea.
I'm sorry.
So now you have to pop the front apart.
Yeah, which is a bunch of staples, and I gotta very carefully do it so I don't damage the panel, because I gotta staple it all back on when we're done here. And I don't think you can like easily replace any of this stuff in a color that matches exactly.
So that'd be another project where we do the whole center island.
Yeah, I already thought about doing that, to be honest with you. Because like if I built this out a little bit further, we could put the fireplace in here.
We don't need it.
Just saying, we could.
Mister, I don't want more projects.
I know. Scope creep, I know. This is where we're gonna hide all our gold. Edit that out so they don't know. There we go. Now I get these last 4 screws. And then when you go to put this panel back on, you'll have to clean up, any of these staples that are left. You gotta take them out or pound them in, and then all these staples have to come off. Yeah, and then you gotta put new staples in. If you're ever working on one of these RVs, they weren't clean when they built them. So inside or behind literally everything, it's this. So if you're fighting with allergies and you're living in an RV full time, when you take the stuff apart, clean it up. You can see we're fully free now. Again, this is a slip joint, so when I lift this up, this just slides free in here, right? And you can see it's full of water, right? That's how that's designed. That's how it's supposed to work. But I'm not gonna mess with it right now. I'm gonna get the counter out of the way and then mess with it after. So now we get to take all these screws out. That's what holds the current thing on, along with glue. So it is just RTV. I had in my head that it was probably like some heavy grade epoxy, but it's just silicone, like the same stuff you'd caulk your shower with. So it's actually not very hard. If you just push your knife through here, it should come off relatively easy. Alright. Old sink, go bye-bye. I would assume there's a template that comes with that thing. I need to look through the install packet. I know there's for sure dimensions on what it's supposed to be, but I need to basically get that dimensions, and then I need to try and cut this and figure out what's going to be the easiest way for me to cut this. Almost right where it was now, I can measure the gap between this flat face here on both sides and feel that it's almost perfectly lined up. And it's lined up with that, so I'm fairly certain it's right about where it was. And then what I'll do is I'll tape off what I need to cut, and I'll very carefully work to cut it, and, you know, obviously start small and slowly work bigger. Then we'll do some test fits and figure out what we got to knock out on the inside here, which I think theoretically is going to be a little bit of this wall and a little bit of this wall, which they're not like structural walls, they're just dividers to divide the sections. And then once it's fit well, I will do the plumbing. And then we're gonna silicone around it, plop it in place, give it a little shimmy to smush the silicone down, and hook the plumbing back up, and it'll be done. I don't want this to drag into a 3-day project. I think this can be done today, I think this can be done today. 2:05. Sorry, I got ahead of myself, guys, and started taping this off without you. I'm gonna draw the cutout I need to make on here. 855, 480 by 855. It's funny, this dimension from this width here is already exactly the width we need. So that works out nice, that I don't really have to do anything there. I did like just a test cut to see how this stuff cuts, what it is. It's just really dense composite plastic. It's rock, sand type material in it, but it cuts kind of like plastic. I got a fine cut blade on it. It might ruin the blade, but it cuts fine. And then I'm gonna start doing this, and all I can, you know, my one FYI would be like, you know, you have to stop when the blade hits this edge, right? But since it's a huge radius, since I'm using a circular saw, it's not going to be cut through at the bottom. So you'll have this big corner section that you got to come back and cut. So I'll get my little oscillating multi-tool and finish the corners. It smells like polycarbonate, I think. Similar composition to polycarbonate. But it's probably got some sort of ceramic in it or something that makes it feel like rock. It's really bad to breathe stuff like that. So you saw me start cutting it and I decided pretty quickly that I should probably stop breathing it. So I've got this papper.
Wow.
So I think the right thing to do now would be to scoot the dishwasher out in the middle of the room, carry this up there, lay it over top of it, make sure it fits right. Oh no! Okay. Oh, I see what I did.
What did you do?
So the 8 right here, and then 5. So instead of being 8:55, I saw the 8 and went to the 5. Think I can redeem myself this time?
Let's see.
This is why they say measure twice, cut once. Look at that. Yeah! That's good. 5 millimeters less in this dimension is actually primo. 475 instead of 480, which is what the drawing says. 480 is fine if you got the room, but 475 worked by 855. Sick. All right, I'm going to go put the countertop on,
and then we can go see, it's not going to fit, but we can go see where we have to start knocking things out of the way to make it fit. All right, so I removed the shelf. I removed the plumbing that's going to have to get redone.
We also did this side, right?
Yeah, I removed this whole bar from the front. So this was right here.
Got it.
So this is where I did the plumbing. This is very situationally specific, so I didn't spend too much time filming. But if you guys have any questions, please leave a comment and we'll follow up. This is exactly how I thought this was going to be. So we will have to notch this a little bit. This diameter won't stick down very far, but there's a plumbing piece that's going to come down right there. So that needs to have some room. And then I just need to attach all these plumbing that comes with it. So like this piece, for example, is going to go up there.
Hold on, I can't see. All right, do it again.
Well, I just, this piece goes up to here, I believe. There's the plumbing that connects between this piece and this piece has to go in. And then I will run this over and connect to it. And then I think I'm going to run this power cord over to that plug. So I'll unhook it over there, daisy chain off of it, and I can add another power box down here. And then I'll have an outlet in here. This is the feed lines for the sink. We got plenty of room. It fits perfect. I'm pretty excited. This is pretty sick. It's really like it was made to go in this space. And when we're done, we'll still have, honestly, similar amount of space to the way it was. It won't be quite as much because there's not going to be the shelf here. But all said and done, it's going to be plenty of room to store the same kind of stuff we had under there back under here. But now we have a dishwasher. This is a non-returnable item, by the way. So if you order this from Home Depot, it's non-returnable. I don't know if Amazon would be different, but it says clear as day that you can't return this once you buy it. So make sure it's going to work before you buy it.
Welcome back. I've just temporarily plugged it in on the side. I'm going to put an outlet in there, but I need to open it and see if there's anything I need to do inside before I go to the hardware store.
It is 5:13.
We are close. Still not impossible.
Well, based on the haircut alone, you can probably assume that we've rolled into the next day. I was really close, but I didn't get finished. The power outlet I bought was a two pole, or it didn't have the ground, so I had to swap that out to finish it. And this stupid hose that came with it that just it just doesn't fit. And if you twist the drain pipe into any orientation that I think makes sense, it doesn't fit at all. And even in the orientation they show it in the install video, it doesn't really fit. So I felt like I should make my own. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll walk you through it and why I think it needs to be rebuilt. In fact, I can show you now. So this hose here, this is the middle section of it. I wanted both fittings off the end. But this was bent to the point that it had a kink like this in it. And if you can see, there's not going to be any flow in that. I have got some parts. I'll show you how I'm going to do it. I will wire it up and then it's completely done. It's currently functional. The sink is functional. My last comment to Aaliyah as we were getting, midday is at bare minimum, we'll have a functional sink. We needed to wash our dishes. So we got there. And the dishwasher's technically plumbed except for this one hose that I felt needed to be rebuilt. Keep up and I'll show you what we're doing next. Okay, so this is not by any means better. It's a temporary solution, but I couldn't get the hose to flex enough. So what I'm going to end up doing is buying a 45 for here to get it over to here. This way it's at least connected. Again, I don't feel like this is much better. It's basically kinked here too, but I can't get this pipe to bend enough to do what I wanted it to.
Not super satisfied with that one tube, but I ran a short rinse, a 6-minute rinse, just to test and watch and make sure there's no leaks. There's no leaks in that. Nothing came through that. So I think that hose is just like an overflow if it gets too full. I'm still going to redo this section. I just need to buy a couple fittings and I can make something that, you know, essentially comes out of that spot, turns it like a 45, and then does like 290s or just a U basically, and goes into the existing pipe. And then it'll have good angle everywhere and it'll be correct and there won't be any strain on any of the plumbing. This pipe is essentially what we're working with. It's actually reversed of the one that's down there. These should be like, this tube and this tube should be 90 degrees to each other. So this one can be pointed towards the dishwasher, which is the orientation it needs to be in. You know, because like right now, there's a huge loop that needs to come out and go back into this. If it was at 90 or like this orientation, it could be a short run here and a short run here, and then you wouldn't lose all this space from here over. The last thing I need to do is I have it currently plugged in on the side of our island because these front doors are off of the under the sink area. But I've already taken the initiative to set up running a second, you know, basically you daisy chain from one outlet to the next. I'll have another GFCI protected outlet in the cabinet underneath the sink and dishwasher so that I can plug in underneath and there won't be like a need to have a cord snaked around the side. So I'm gonna do that real quick. I will show you. It's super simple. There's 3 connections. There's a white, a black, and then the earth ground. And then the electric box itself will screw to the wall. This will screw into the electric box after you connect it. And then there's a cover that goes on it. Only caveat, if you're doing anything electric, if you're ever playing with electricity, your own responsibility. I take no liability for anybody messing with any electric. I know which circuit it is, so I'm just going to go to my panel, my breaker panel, and I'm going to turn it off, and I will plug something into the outlet and turn it on, test that it's for sure dead. Again, I know exactly which one it is because I've been working on this RV for a while now, but I will make sure it's off, and then I'm going to wire up this outlet, get it connected, and then I'm going to start putting it all back together. So I'm going to connect it here and then loop this thing back, and I'll have a lot more slack once it's down there. I'm going to use these the push connect fittings because they're so much easier than using the screws. And then the earth ground is a screw no matter what. These are labeled pretty clearly. It's pretty obvious. You almost can't mess it up. So let me reposition you so you can see down inside here, and I'll put some screws in it. These 2 screws right here. I'll screw the box to the wall, screw the outlet to the box, and then screw the cover to the outlet. And then I'm going to go turn the breaker back on, plug this in and test it, make sure everything's good. So I'm going to mount this right here. Alright, just like that, we have an electrical outlet installed down here. Okay, so I'm going to run it for the first time. We're going to go ahead and load it. So I put the pod. There's like conflicting information online. The thing we found on their website says put your, you know, if you're doing like a pod or something, put it on top of the debris strainer. So that's where we put it right there. So now I'm going to close it up. Give it a click. Power. Dishes. Mode. So we've got intensive. Eco. Delicate. Normal. We're going to do normal. It's going to run for 1 hour. We'll check back at the end and see how they came out. In the meantime, I'm going to start putting this back together so you guys can watch me time lapse through putting the island itself back together. I need to throw a couple screws in the countertop,
A couple screws in the back side of the countertop, screw the back side of the cabinet back on, put the doors back on, handful of small things like that, but you'll see me snap and it'll basically be done. All right, it's all done. The dishwasher is also complete. So let's see how it did washing the dishes. So obviously still a little wet, but I can hear something like a fan running, so maybe it will help dry these. But so far, like, nothing funky going on. This had a bunch of stuff burnt onto the bottom, and you could see that it's actually not perfect, but it had a bunch of stuff burnt onto the bottom. So like, that was a bad one, and for where it started, I would say that's pretty good. I didn't clean it at all. I didn't clean any of the stuff. These, you know, porcelain bowls, all nice and clean. There's actually a fan pumping hot air, so if I leave these in here, I would imagine they will get dry. I'm gonna leave the lid open. I think that'll help dry it. And it is winter here, so a little bit more moisture in the air is not going to hurt anything. So what I'm doing now is getting ready to caulk it into place. And so I had laid this tape out originally to mark it to cut the hole, and then I didn't peel it because A, it's going to protect this surface, and B, when I get to this step, so while this was still down, I probably should have filmed this, but the point is moot now. I took a razor blade and I ran the razor blade all the way around this edge right here. So now I've lifted the whole thing up just enough to put a bead of caulking under there, and I'm gonna peel, so you can look over here where I already started. I can peel it off and I'll get exactly the shape of this outside edge. So then I'll put a big fat bead of caulking in here, and when I set the sink down into it, it'll smear it out, and what doesn't get smushed underneath here to create the seal and the glue to glue it in place will get on this tape. I can wipe off the excess, and then I'll let it dry for, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and then I'm going to peel off the tape, and we'll have a nice sharp edge all the way around. The caulking itself has like a 24-hour cure, so that 30 minutes or so is just long enough. I'll read the bottle actually, but generally you would want to wait till it like tacks up is what they'll say. Quick Seal Ultra. Fancy. I got this one just because it's got a lifetime mold protection. You want one that's like super mold resistant for kitchen, bathroom type things, because otherwise this caulking gets black and nasty and it's literally mold growing in it. So you want to get a really good one. So like we talked about a second ago, I peeled off all the stuff from underneath. Now I'm going to run a really fat bead of caulking under there, and then I'm going to go all the way around, and then we'll lift it up. I'll lift it up right in these spots the wood is, do that section, and then set it down. And then we'll wipe off any excess and peel the tape.